factor out the greatest common factor or factor by grouping. What we need to do with this problem is we need to find the biggest number that can divide 60 and 30 and factor it out, and then we're looking at the same part with the z cubed and the z, the biggest factor for z cubed and z, and we're going to pull it out. So if we look at these numbers right here, we have 60 and 30, so we can recognize that the biggest number that can divide 60 and 30 evenly would be 30. And then if we look at the z cubed and the z, we see that they have a z in common. So we factor that out. And then the next question we need to ask ourselves is either 60 divided by 30, or you can think of it as 30 times what is going to give you the 60 in the original problem. So 30 times 2, and then z times z squared would give you the z cubed. And then 30 times 1 would give you a 30, and then z, we already have it here, so we don't need anything else. So when we factor out the greatest common factor, it would be 30z times 2z squared plus 1. Now I know that sometimes it's not as easy to recognize the greatest common factor, so there's many methods out there that you can use to factor out the greatest common factor. One method that I like is organizing your work, and you put the coefficients for the variables here, or the coefficients, for the two terms, which are 60 and 30, and I think of the biggest number that can divide both 60 and 30. So you can see that the biggest number would be 10, or you can start with 2, or it just doesn't matter as long as it's a common factor for both. So if I take the 60 divided by 10, I get 6. If I take 30 divided by 10, I get 3. Then I see that I have a 6 and a 3. They have a common factor of 3, so I'm going to pull out that common factor. So if I pull out a 3, I get 6 divided by 3, I get 2, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. So I'm left with a group of 2 and 1. So they no longer have a common factor, so I'm done with the problem. So then what we need to do is we need to find the product of these two numbers to find the greatest common factor. So 10 times 3, that's equal to 30. This is the 30 that we pulled out right here. So notice you can do the same thing with the z. So I have z times z times z, that's z cubed, and then I have a z here. You can see that you have a z in common. So if I pull out that z, I'm left with z squared here. You see that? So kind of like you can see where all the numbers are coming from. I pulled out the 30, that's where this is coming from. And then see this 2 here? That's where this is coming from. And then these z squared, that's where that's coming from. And then you have this 1 here. You can put it there. And we don't have any z's left over here, so that's why we don't include the z there. So factor out the greatest common factor of this, it would be 30z times 2z squared plus 1.